Hello and welcome to the Young Film Academy podcast, the essential podcast for teenagers looking to find their way into the creative industries. I'm James Walker, and this is another podcast hijack because I've taken over from your usual host, Dan and Amelia, and we are here live at the Media Production and Technology Show here at London's Olympia. You probably hear the show in the background. There's a lot of shiny toys and bits of tech, and in fact there are people looking in through the window at us right now because we are here in a specially designed pod, sort of soundproofed by Canon, who are our partners for this, and we're delighted to be here. Now, this week, we will be talking with some of our students at Young Film Academy, and we're delighted to have them join me for this pod to talk about their experience on a unique filmmaking project that we run at Young Film Academy called Project Paradiso. The context of this is that each year Young Film Academy teach about 15,000 young people aged between 6 to 19, and out of all of those we select some of the strongest candidates in different disciplines to be part of a project where we go to Sicily in February to shoot a short film, and then hopefully that film has a life on the festival circuit, which all these young people have their names on, and it can help to build and springboard them to the next stage in their careers. So I'm really delighted to be joined today by students Emily Coleman and Leah Joy, who have been selected for this and joining me today. So good to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So Emily, let's start with you. You got an email at some point saying you were selected for Project Paradiso. Talk us through how did that feel? What were your thoughts at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of don't even think that it happened. It felt pretty weird. I was in class at the time and the notification sort of popped up, and I was like, I genuinely thought they sent it to the wrong people, because I was just like, there's no way that they picked me to do something as cool as that. And then it was real, and we had all the Zoom meetings and stuff, and it wasn't really until we got to Sicily that I was like, oh, I'm actually here, I'm actually on the project. Like, they actually picked me to do it.
And really how old are you, Emily?
I'm 17.
You're 17. Terrific.
Yeah.
And Leah, how was it for you? And in fact, maybe you could start. How old are you?
I'm 18.
18.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when did you hear? How did it feel?
For me, it was actually the complete opposite, because I didn't know what it was. Yeah. So I did the BFI Film Academy, and I haven't done like summer camp or anything. And it was after like meeting these guys. Apparently, it was like a big thing that I didn't know about. So I got the email, and I knew Amelia, so I was a bit confused. So I was asking if you could tell me some more details about it, and I jumped on the Zoom, and then I got to know about it a bit more, and I thought it was really cool. Never heard of a project like this happening, and obviously Young Film Academy have been quite a big part of my life, and of course I wanted to jump on something like this. So, yeah,
so actually, when you got selected, you didn't really know what you'd been selected for. Yeah, that's fantastic. And so looking at the project now, because this is year 2 of Project Paradiso, so you were the second lot of students to have done this. So when we first started, just a little bit of context, when we had the idea, there was a lot of people who said, you're absolutely crazy. You're going to take 24 young people, so 3 of the writers who don't actually come on the production stage, because it's very much this sort of hybrid education industry project. So obviously the writers have done amazing jobs of creating the script, but then they don't come on the shoot itself. So we do a writer's room that takes about 6 weeks, and then the production part where we take everyone to Sicily, plus all the gear and the equipment and all that stuff. 21 young people, plus I think we had 8 staff. So it's almost 30 human beings going out to Sicily for a week in February. And people said that you're crazy. It's never going to work. Did you guys have a bit of that sense? Like, did you have a wonder how on earth that was ever going to actually work practically?
Yeah, I remember when we had the fundraising pages out, I was like, there's just no way that's going to happen. Like, it just looked really, that had the little like bar of like the progress bar, and I would just look at it and I'd be like, how is it going to happen? Why have they like decided to do it? But then it happened, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, it just was crazy.
Well, I think that's a really good thing. So the context of this is that the project is run through a charity partner of Young Film Academies, and the funds are raised through a charity fundraising campaign to essentially raise the funds to be able to give the young people that experience. And yeah, so we need to raise quite a decent amount of money for that. I think the fundraising goal was about £75,000. And Leah, what was your view of that fundraising?
It was actually very similar. Like, there's nothing I hate more than crowdfunding, because it's such a hit or miss with it. And then it got very close to the deadline, and I saw, okay, it's actually coming in a lot more now. And I was like, I should probably book days off work now because I can see this actually happening. But yeah, no, to begin with, I wasn't too sure because it's quite a lot of money to be raising, very short span of time as well. But yeah, no, really surprised and really happy that it happened.
And did you spread the word on your own networks to
Yeah,
get contributions from people?
Yeah, I was just spamming all my family and friends, like industry, like contacts everyone. I was just like, everyone was getting a spam message from me like every day or so.
And what did you feel was the feedback there when you were sending this out? Because I mean, it's quite a unique project.
Yeah.
And what do you think was the? Why do you think it had? Why do you think people did donate to that?
I think a lot of people, they genuinely want to support something like this because it's about really promoting young people and kind of navigating their career, and it's not something that a lot of people are doing right now. I think there are a lot of opportunities out there for young people to kind of come on, but it's really hard to get onto. So to have an opportunity like this, I think people are generally going to want to support something like this, and especially like people who work in the industry as well, they know how hard it is. Obviously family and friends, they just want to support us either way, so yeah.
And so for you, Emily?
Yeah, I think so. I think the main thing for me with the fundraising, because I didn't know a lot of people sort of in the industry, was just getting to see people in person and talk to them about it. Because I think when you're with someone face to face and you can hear how passionate they are, that was sort of what I found the most effective way for actually to talk to people about how much it meant to be on this project. So I did like a karaoke night where people would come and then they'd like donate to nights, and I just go around and talk to everyone, and then by the end of the night I met my part of the fundraising goal as well, because just getting to talk to everyone's like,
That's
oh,
such
actually,
a
let's do
brilliant
it.
idea. That's
Yeah.
so good. Well, I think that's a great lesson moving forward, is that so much of a show like this, actually coming to a place, face-to-face meetings with people, especially for young people, where a lot is kind of done by messages and all that stuff. But a lot of the industry does work on old school, kind of meet people, shake their hands, be there, do that. So it was great that you managed to fundraise. Well done with that. So this year, the second year that happened, met the fundraising goal. Had you seen the previous year's Project Paradiso film before, where the students had you watched that previous film at all?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah.
You had. And what kind of expectations did that summon in your minds for your experience?
I mean, I was just really excited when at camp when we watched it, and we got to talk to all the students from last year as well. It just looked so cool, and all the equipment they had. I was like, I just couldn't wait to like get to do it.
I think it definitely set the bar quite high.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think to get such a good final product from young people is quite extraordinary, because you don't usually get that. People expect to see some like a student film, not good quality, but this is something like industry standard, and so it was really good to see that.
Yeah, totally. And maybe we could therefore, just for a bit of context here, what were your journeys into Young Film Academy, actually, before we go any further? So sort of, Emily, what had you done before with Young Film Academy that got you selected for Project Paradiso?
Yeah, so I was at summer camp last year. Sorry.
So that's the Young Film Academy Residential Screenwriting and Filmmaking and Screen Acting Summer Camp.
Yeah, so I was there for 2 weeks, and it was my first sort of experience in sort of filmmaking. I'd never really thought of it as an option before, and then I went and just sort of fell in love with everything about it, and then I got to go to Paradiso as well, which was it was such a cool shortcut in of getting to go to have that experience with some of the cameras and then get to do even more at Paradiso.
So before you came to Young Film Academy Summer Camp, which is when Young Film Academy takes over a school in summertime, turns it into a movie studio, that's bonkers. We make 36 films in 2 weeks with 250 young people. But you'd never done anything like that before?
No, I'd never done anything close.
Had you done, what was your sort of creative outlet before then, if there was one?
I did a lot of dance and, sorry. I did a lot of dance and ballet, so I'd sort of always thought that was what I would go to. And then I think someone sent me the link to camp and was like, oh, this could be kind of cool. And I looked, I was like, you know what, I may as well try it. In the summer, it could be just fun. And then it actually turned into something a lot more than just sort of a bit of fun in the summer.
So it sort of lit a spark to some degree for you. And did you, at that stage, have a particular, because a lot of young people I know kind of come and they try all the different elements of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Was there a particular element that stood out for you?
I mean, I think I went into it sort of from more of a like directing standpoint of like, oh, I want to direct. But then actually when we got on set and we were shooting and I was, oh, actually the camera's quite cool. And I sort of actually started to sort of gravitate a bit more over to all the equipment sort of things. And then I got to do some camera stuff, and just setting all the stuff up was like, oh, actually there's so much we can do here.
So you were drawn to the sort of technical elements.
Yeah.
And what, are you a technical person normally?
Not really, actually. I kind of surprised myself with that, I guess. Like, it's sort of, I wouldn't have thought that I'd enjoy that side of things, but it was actually just really cool.
That's great. And then when you were selected for Project Paradiso, because I know there's different crews on Project Paradiso, what was the crew that you were selected for?
I was put on camera crew as well, which is really cool.
So that basically your abilities in that area had been noticed, and that was so that's brilliant. And Leah, for you, can you give us a sense of what was your first journey with Young Film Academy? What was the programme, and how did it progress from there?
Yeah, so I started off with the BFI Film Academy that I did with YFA, and that was really cool experience for me, because after like dropping out of school I wasn't really sure what to do, and I wasn't really too sure about the roles in the industry and things like that, and then I was selected to work as producer on that film, so that was like my first time doing producing, and back then I was like, what does a producer do? Like, not a lot, it's all the paperwork and that, and then I did it and I actually really liked it. And after doing that, I got selected to do the NFTS Craft Skills residential course in Beaconsfield.
At National Film and Television?
Yeah, the NFTS main campus. And that's really cool. And I couldn't have done that without doing YFA as well. But yeah, again, that opened so many doors. I did something a bit different there. I did sound there. I was a bit of a soundy for a while. That didn't go well. So
was that your choice?
Well, I applied for producing, and sound was my second option because someone told me to
go for sound.
Exactly. And then it was after that someone said, no, put the option you want most second, and that's what you get into. And I was like, you should have told me that to begin with. But I actually really enjoyed doing sound. It was really cool. The tutor that we had was a really, really experienced person, and when you just walk into NFTS, you just want to learn. That's how it is. Like, that's how the campus is, and just all the kit and all the facilities that they have there is just amazing. So yeah, after doing that, that was like I had my film premiered at BFI South Bank again. So that was the second time. That was really cool. So yeah, I did that, and I've been working on a lot of indie stuff off the back of that as well. So I think like everything kind of just started opening more doors for me.
Wow. So all this has happened in the last
2 years.
2 years for you. What a journey. And did you come from a background, is there any of your family involved in the film industry or anything? Do you know anybody else in the industry?
No. So this, doing YFA as well was really like random, in the sense that it wasn't really something I thought I'd be doing. Like, no one in my family does it. No one like that lives near me does that sort of thing. So like, coming from the Midlands as well, like after doing all these opportunities, I started to learn there's actually quite a big community there, and quite a big industry happening in the Midlands as well that I didn't know about before. So it was really cool, yeah.
That's brilliant. So just for the listeners out there, so when referring to YFA is Young Film Academy, and the BFI Academy scheme that you're referring to, because we will have listeners out there who are aspiring filmmakers themselves. So there is a scheme run in the UK by the British Film Institute, BFI, called the UK Network, BFI Academy Network Scheme, where there are 40 providers, that number may be going down I think this year, who do schemes which are essentially free for participants. And it's, I think the Young Film Academy course, so we're one of those, is about 10 days, is that right? It was about 10 days of filmmaking?
Yeah.
And you made a short film during that time and then premiered it at the BFI South Bank. Yeah. And so that was part of a wider scheme, and you then went on to apply to the top of that scheme, which is going to the National Film and Television School, the NFTS, which is one of the best film schools in the world, and doesn't usually open its doors to younger people. So maybe tell us a little bit, whilst we're here, about that particular experience, the NFTS part of the BFI Academy scheme.
So I applied for that very last minute because I need to get a reference from Nick Shearer, who was my tutor for the YFA course I did. And I got the reference, I applied, and then I got an email in January, and I was like, I don't want to open it, I don't want to look at this. And then I opened it, and I got in for sound. And I was still a bit like, oh, should I go? It sounds not really something I want to do. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And I went, and it was quite nerve-wracking going in. I don't know anyone there. There was like 60 people, I don't know anyone. It was really awkward. And then by the end of like the 2 weeks, I was just like best friends with everyone. Absolutely loved it. Obviously trying sound for the first time was it was a bit weird as well because I hadn't done anything like that before, and I'm not really a technical person. But it was really cool because I was like holding the boom, like it's just a really cool job to do. And the tutors that we had was as well. They just knew everything. Most of them were like graduates from NHS. They'd just graduated. And we also had what the main tutors that were there as well, who were obviously been working in the industry for quite a while. So it was really cool to be learning under those people as well, and just to really soak in the whole environment that they have at NFTS.
They have so much. Their facilities are unbelievable, and it is one of the things that, young people talk about going to, and we get asked a lot of advice about which film schools people should choose. And there is a tendency sometimes for people to go to film school and find, especially if they've done Young Film Academy programs, some universities can be less practical and less facilities and less equipped, all than the Young Film Academy does for under 18s. But NFTS is a whole different ballgame. I mean, that is a remarkable. I mean, they've got all those big studio sets and electricians and everything sort of there. It's apparently quite an experience. So to have a taster of that must have been fantastic.
Yeah, it was really amazing, and the films that come out of there as well. If you go to study at an NFTS, it's just amazing. They go to the biggest film festivals in the world, and it's so cool to like leave a university like that and come with a good slate of films that have just basically just built your portfolio for you already.
Yeah, which I think, and to some extent, that model is what we were trying to do at Young Film Academy with Project Paradiso, because there is this catch-22, isn't there? Which to as young people, to get jobs on good things, you need to have shown good things that you've made in the past, right? And that's a catch-22. So what we were hoping is that summer camp make some fantastic films, but to take that upper level so that you can have your names on a film that's just of a different quality level that will hopefully springboard you to a different thing. So what a great story that is, Leah, about the BFI Academy and the NFTS. And so then, I suppose actually, whilst we're there, I just want you to talk about that thing you were saying. You're a bit fearful. You got that. So on both occasions, the acceptance came with an element of fear, and I've got a feeling that a lot of our listeners will identify with that. So maybe can you just talk to that feeling and how you got yourself over that, and not from a background where it was all as if you have a family where people who work in this industry, and how do you feel looking back about your hesitation initially?
I think for me personally, because I dropped out of school, so I thought I was done with education, and then to come on to something like this really randomly as well, of course I'm going to be quite hesitant to come on to something like this, and I wasn't too sure, am I ready to kind of go back into sort of learning environment, but I thought I might as well give it a go, because if I don't, I'm kind of losing an opportunity there. It's something different. I thought I'd give it a go, and I can't lie, it was the best thing I'd ever did. Without having those opportunities, I don't think I'd be where I am right now, and it's definitely not where I thought I'd be. Like if I look back 2 years ago, I didn't think I'd be doing this, but I am, and I really love what I'm doing every day.
And here you are at the media.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Production show doing a pod about it. Yeah, brilliant. Well, what a great story. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you've been selected for Project Paradiso. The fundraising has been completed. Amazingly, the money is in place. The film has been green-lit, if you like. In that lead up, those Zoom meetings to going out there, what was your impression, Emily? Did you know other people who'd been selected? What was your feelings in the anticipation of the lead up?
I knew a few other people who went there. We all worked on the same camp film for most of the camera crew, so it was quite nice going into it knowing, it's not completely strangers, but there were still quite a few people who I had no idea who they were, and it's sort of, in the Zoom meetings, it was sort of, everyone seemed so nice, but I was also a bit like, oh, what if I get there and I don't know anyone, what if they don't like me, whatever. But when we got there, it's sort of, we really quickly, everyone just sort of became best friends. Honestly, it was like a little family out there. And I was just so excited to be a part of it. And even just from when we had that first script run through in the Zoom, I was like, oh, actually, this is going to be a really cool film. And I was just so excited to get to do it.
And what did you feel like when you read the script? Because obviously the screenwriting team have been working in the writer's room on quite an extraordinary idea. I mean, we can't say too much because the film hasn't premiered, but maybe you can give us just a sort of a brief outline of what the story is about.
I don't want to spoil anything. It was actually really freaky when I first read it. I was kind of freaked out by it, but in a cool way. It was, I don't know how to not spoil anything. So these friends, they're going and they're staying in Italy, and God, I'm going to forget everything now that's happened in it as well. And then they, one of them finds something, and she weird things start happening to her, and there's sort of a weird dynamic going on in the friend group, and things just start to get a bit crazier and crazier until it just gets insane.
And what's the genre of the movie?
It's a horror.
It's a horror.
Yeah.
And do you like horrors? Are you into horror? Is that
I do normally. I go in and out of it. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, like I just want to get like really like jump scared or something really scary happen. But then other times I'm just, oh, I can't deal with it.
That's great. So you read the script, you had a pretty positive reaction.
Yeah, it looked really good.
It was a challenge, wasn't it? Because I mean, that script, what they put on the page is not an easy thing to execute in a sort of student film environment. What was your reaction, Leah, to reading the script for the first time?
I had to get like my producer head on, and I was like, I don't see this happening. I just couldn't see it happening. I'm like, if it does happen, it's gonna take a lot of hard work. And obviously when we got there, it happened, and I was quite surprised. I didn't think it would happen, but it did. But no, it was really cool. It wasn't something I'd sort of seen before, so it was definitely new. And it wasn't what I was expecting when I first read the script as well. But no, I think they did a really good job, and there's a lot of hard work put into it. So you can really see that as well.
Risky. It was a risky idea.
Definitely, yeah.
We did talk about it when they said this is what they've come up with. It's like, crikey. Okay, well, here's the challenge. And so I think that was the thing. There's no safety net here.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, if you guys go and you don't make that movie, or you make a version, but maybe not the best version of it, so be it. That's the challenge. So it really is up to you and going. And I suppose let's just talk about that note of working with other young people, because I know this is a recurring theme we have at Young Film Academy about the difficulty at your age of finding others who are interested in the same thing, I suppose. And I know that at Young Film Academy, what we get is that by coming, you kind of automatically meet others who share that interest. Was that a big thing for you, Leah?
Yeah, 100%. Like where I'm from, obviously, no one else like does film or anything like that. And then I came into a sort of environment that like everyone's quite like-minded, and this is all they talk about. So it was like really weird transitioning into that, and I felt like I was home essentially, because everyone's talking about the same thing. This is sort of the industry we want to work with, and essentially these are the people I'm going to be working with in the future as well. So it was really nice to meet a really different range of people, quite mixed ages from like all across the UK as well. So it was really cool to see that.
Same for you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, same for me. I'd never really met anyone who sort of was interested in film or much sort of creative side of things. And so then getting to summer camp and Paradiso as well, where everyone is talking about the same films, everyone's sort of in the same boat of like, you just instantly have that connection with people, because, if you don't know what to talk about, you go, oh, what's your favorite film? And then you've got a conversation to go off for ages.
It's a real opener, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an automatic bonding process. So finally you pack your bags and you arrive at an airport where there's a ton of other people. You get on an airplane, you arrive in Sicily. Have any of you ever been to Sicily before, or Italy?
I've been to Italy, not in Sicily though. Yeah, so really nice to be down south this time.
Well, it was February, and I remember the weather was terrible here, wasn't it? And so maybe you could start us off, Emily. What was your first impressions, literally, when you meet everyone at the airport, and those first sort of maybe 24 hours?
I mean, it was quite surprising, really, because everyone got there, and even though most of us didn't know each other, it felt like we'd been friends forever, really, from the beginning. And then, we got to the location, and it was just this beautiful little lemon farm, and we were all just like, couldn't believe we got to spend a whole week there. And then, at least for the camera side of things, we then spent the first day sort of going through all our equipment and stuff like that, which was a bit terrifying, honestly. I'd not really even heard of most of what we were using or like seen it before, so I was like, oh, like what have I got myself into? Like, I didn't know if I could do it. But then everyone was just so nice that it felt really safe to sort of be able to ask anything, or like be like, oh yeah, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to use that, and people would be like, oh, it's fine, and they just tell you how to do it. And so it was really nice to be able to be there.
And just from a camera perspective, what kind of equipment were you using?
We had like an Arri Alexa Mini, I think it was, for our main camera, and we had just a bunch of different lenses and all these really cool lights and things, and sound equipment was also so really so cool, and it was just stuff I'd never even seen before, that I just couldn't believe, like, oh, I'm here for a week, or I'm actually going to be like using this stuff.
Well, I know that Young Film Academy were very much about trying to give that opportunity to use really industry standard gear. And I suppose, what was having used it, I suppose, was your reaction that it was very different for anything you'd used before, or it was similar but there was differences? Like, what was your overall impression?
I mean, I think there were parts of it that were sort of a bit familiar from sort of other stuff that I'd used in the past, but most of it was like just so different to what I'd ever seen before. I was like, there's just so many buttons on things, and it's all so heavy, and it's like just it was completely different.
Heavy, that's a thing.
Yeah, heavy. It was really heavy.
Alexa Mini is obviously one of the smallest things, but did you find that once it's rigged up,
it's on your shoulder and it's so heavy, and you're just like holding onto it, like, oh, don't drop it, don't drop it.
Because it's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And Leah, what were your first impressions, that first 24 hours?
Mine was a complete opposite. Like, we keep having opposite reactions to this. But no, for me, it was really awkward because I didn't know anyone. I think I knew one person who did the BFI Academy with me. I didn't know anyone else. So I was like really awkward. I was trying to start a conversation, but I was like, no, I'm not feeling it today. It was the morning after that I decided, okay, I'm going to actually start talking to people now. And then obviously we were roommates. Yeah. So we started talking.
Yeah. That's nice.
So we started talking, and then like I think slowly throughout the next day, I kind of started talking to everyone else as well. Met everyone face to face. We only knew everyone through Zoom, and I think we all started really bonding after that.
And you were on the producing.
I was on the producing
team.
Yeah.
So I suppose once you got there and saw the scale of the set, is that the biggest set that you've worked on? Can you give us a sense of the scale, number of people?
No, so I worked on slightly bigger as well on other films I worked on. But yeah, I think in terms of working with young people, that's kind of like a big crew I've worked with.
Because what was the set size total?
I think it was, what was it, 20 people? Plus the HODs as well, so quite a few.
Yeah, late 20s. Yeah.
Yeah.
But did it feel? I mean, did you feel that it was a?
Yeah, it was huge, especially compared to camp, where you have about 6 filmmakers, I think, at camp. So it was just crazy going into that and being like, there's just so many people everywhere, and it was crazy.
Yeah, and from a producing perspective, Leah, what did you know? I know you'd read the script and you said this ain't happening. Did you revise that with it? Because I think for the listeners there, how many shoot days did you have? I think 6.
6 maybe.
6 or 7.
Yeah,
6 maybe. Shoot days. Once you got there and sort of saw, because also, well, let's talk about the location, because the location is pretty special. It sits under Mount Etna, which is the big sort of volcano on Sicily. What were your impressions, Leah, when you got there?
Well, we didn't see it until the morning after, because when we got there it was pitch black. But we saw it. We woke up to it, and it was actually really cool. Everyone was getting up to see the sunrise. I couldn't wake up for that, but everyone else was going to go see that. And it was really beautiful. Yeah.
Because you've got the sea on one side, you've got Etna behind you. And maybe can you describe to us from a production point, what were the types of locations that you were shooting in?
It was actually quite varied, because we were staying on where the lemon farm was, and then we were filming on like kind of the opposite side as well, in this creepy mansion. When the doors are shut, you feel like you're in a horror film. So it was actually quite creepy. But there's a lot of different locations available on site as well. Obviously there was like the big swimming pool that was in the last film as well, so that was quite an iconic location for us to see. It was such a pretty place, and it's not really somewhere I've filmed before, so it was quite different to that.
And the script calls for puppets, and I think, can you tell us a little bit about the sort of the puppets and the whole puppet thing that happened?
That was quite creepy. I think it was like the first or second day, and this guy had turned up with a van full of puppets, and we had to kind of escort them up, and they were really heavy. Yeah. They were really creepy.
What are we talking about? Little puppet?
Like that big? They were massive.
People not watching, so you're looking at sort of a 3-foot puppet. Yeah.
They're massive, they're quite heavy, and they do look a bit like...
They were really freaky.
They were quite freaky, but it was... Once the guy who bought them, he was telling us about the heritage behind it, the Sicilian puppets. It was really interesting to hear that. It wasn't something I actually knew about before, so it was quite different to know about it, but to them it's quite personal to them, and it's part of their ancestry as well. So it was I don't want to say a burden, but it was like, oh, okay, we need to actually like look after these now and just like make sure we justify it why we're using it. And
where did the puppets go?
In the mansion. We kind of line them about everywhere.
You'd like walk in the evenings or something, and there'd just be puppets along the walls. So you'd be in this really creepy mansion by yourself. It would be like so dark in there, and you just see these little faces like lined up on the couch or like in a corner, and it was terrifying.
Well, I've seen a BTS behind the scenes of all of them, because I think the production design team only used like a quarter of them in the end, just there were so many. But someone was looking at these sort of reams of sofas full of these enormous puppets. Yeah, that was great. And so the production starts, and you're young people, you're working on now really quite a big set with full-on gear, industry standard Netflix style gear. And what, Emily, for you is sort of your takeaways of the way the set is working? Did it take a little time for you as the camera crew to get into it? And what I suppose, what were your main impressions about the way a set of that size works?
I mean, I think on the first day it was a bit of chaos. Honestly, we got it took a while to sort of get in the rhythm of like each setup of like, oh, actually, okay, if we're moving to this location, what can we do before we get there to have it ready so we can save the time? So it was very much a learning process of like, we lost a lot of time doing this. Okay, next time we have to do it. And so it was like, we really learned like the expectation of like, we have to be moving quickly and we have to be efficient with what we're doing. We can't be sort of wasting time because we don't have the time to be doing that. And so it was quite like it got to a point where like, oh, like we really have to get moving. And so that, but then we all sort of, everyone kind of rose to the challenge really with it, and we all were sort of just on it and getting to like, okay, cool, we're going over here, we'll set up the monitors over there while they're doing that. And then we were all ready for it. And so by the rest of the week we were really we had a rhythm going and we knew what we were doing.
So it picked up speed, essentially. And you were responsible in partly for the scheduling of all of this stuff. How did you feel in those opening days?
It was me and Jasper. We were AD. We were like kind of the AD duo, and we didn't start until later on in the week. So we started off by doing a bit of BTS and things like that. Again, like I'm not a technical person, so doing that was a bit awkward for me. But I learned quite a lot from doing that. And when we got to AD and I whipped out the iPad, I was like, you know what? We're gonna get this done properly now. We made a full on schedule. Tried to stick to it as much as we can. But obviously, tried to change their mind. Everyone decides to change their mind last minute. After I've made a really nice schedule. But yeah, no, it was actually really cool doing that. And obviously you get onto set and you don't want to be on set with an AD who's like really angry all the time, which I feel like was me, kind of. But no, it was a lot of like moving quite fast, and I've changing things around because things change, things happen. And I think after we kind of brought that schedule into place, I think everything started moving swiftly, and I think things started happening a lot better after that.
And ADing is a very difficult role, I think, on a film. So do you want to describe for listeners, what does an AD do? What do you do? I mean, first AD, I suppose.
So the first AD essentially manages the set. They're in charge of the scheduling, kind of making sure department's all ready, kind of checking in on everyone, liaising with the director, seeing if you need pickups, etc., etc. And I've worked with ADs before, and you want to make sure you've got a good AD, because if the AD's not holding it together, like nothing's going to happen. So I think it was a really good learning process for all of us to kind of learn how to manage that many people as well. You got to make sure your voice is heard. So yeah, no.
What was your particular style? Because obviously first ADs have different style. You get the kind of the strident ones, you get the kind of nice ones, you get the what was your particular
I try to be a bit of both, but obviously sometimes when the directors decide to change their mind about 10 times in the past 10 minutes, I'm a bit like, I start getting quite frustrated. But obviously you've got to be quite adaptable. Like as a first aid, you've got to be quite adaptable, and you got to essentially like think on the spot as well. Like what can we do? What can we shift around to get it done? And I feel like very quickly you start picking up those skills. Whilst you're on set, you're like, okay, we need to move these things around. And again, it's about working as a team as well, liaising with the different departments and seeing how we can all work together. And I think definitely after like the first couple of days, we all kind of got the hang of it.
Well, I came to set, I think, on day 3 or 4, and by that point, actually, first of all, it was the first exterior you do, so you were doing a lot of interiors. And as I understand it, the interiors require a really different technical approach from the exteriors. Can you talk us through a little bit of what the challenges that posed?
I think the main thing, I still get like flashbacks to it, the battery situation when we're outside, of having to like, we'd get like the low battery alert come up on the monitor, be like, oh, we need a battery, and we'd like run over, be like, oh, none of them are on charge. We had to go find all these charges, and we were sort of took a while to figure out, okay, like when like we need someone on standby to grab them, we need to make sure the charges are like good to go. And it was chaos at the start of it, because when we're inside, we're right by all the charges, we're right by everything. We never really had to think about it. And then we get outside, like, oh, actually, like it takes a lot of power to have these lights, the cameras, the monitors, and all of it. And so we're all just running back and forth for a while, and then we got used to it, and we were like, okay, now next time that we shoot outside, we know we need to have this there. If we put these here, that worked better. And sort of just adapting what we had first thought we were going to do, and go, actually, this is what will work better.
Well, I think that's a really good point. And in fact, if this show here at London Olympia, so much of this is kind of flashy flight sort of screens and monitors and power blocks and batteries and trucks and all that infrastructural stuff that the film industry does require. Because I think when you're a young person and you make a film with a couple of mates, you don't really realise how important all of that stuff goes. And then, as you scale up, you realise what all of this stuff is doing, and it poses its own challenges. And did you find that you gravitated or had a particular interest in one particular element of the technical stuff for you?
Yeah, so I ended up getting to do a lot of the focus pulling, which I didn't even know it was a thing before I got to Paradiso. And it's pretty stressful, but it's just one of those things. I just loved doing it. We had this like tracking shot up these stairs and onto a balcony, and then she had to like climb through a window, and that was my first time ever focus pulling. Was I had to do that shot, and I did it, and I think I did okay with it. Like I was happy with how it looked. And then from that point, I was like, oh, actually, this is really cool. This is really fun to do, because you're just sort of like following them along with the little focus wheel and doing it, and it was just like I didn't even think that was the kind of that even existed on set, that sort of role was there, and it was just so much fun to do it.
And what is focus pulling?
So there's a little like wheel on the lens of the camera, like it touching the lens of the camera, so it then because the camera operator, you can't really like get to it normally, you're sort of at your own little monitor with the focus pulling wheel that's connected to it, to change, like say if you want something in the background to be focused, and then like pull focus to the person, switching it around.
I mean, it is a vitally important thing. As a producer, I've worked on sets where, and this was worse, by the way, in the days of film, because in the days where you were shooting on film, you couldn't immediately review what you'd shot. So there was a danger that, and I worked on one actually film where basically the focus puller was always out slightly, so that everything was slightly soft. And you didn't know until you sent the rushes away, and then you'd have to wait, and they would come back, and you literally, and by that point, of course, everyone's gone, set's gone. And you looked at it, and it's like 80% of the film's out of focus. And it was an absolute nightmare. I could have killed that person. But it's a really difficult job. And I think one of the challenges, and I know that the team, that sort of the heads of department said, what a brilliant job you guys did of pulling focus. And on set saw the joy you were getting from it. So give us that sense, because you're working on a remote, which is a different thing. So you've got a remote control in your hand, and what are you looking at?
So I'm looking at one of the monitors that the directors have as well. So I'm pretty much just like, you have to sort of look at the eyes of the actors mainly and make sure they're really sharp. And then it also meant that when there's a lot of shots on the puppets, I've just spent a lot of time like eyeing up these puppets like really close up, which is a bit freaky. But yeah, so you're just sort of following them around with the little wheel, and you sort of get in a rhythm with it, which was actually quite fun to do as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah. That's fun. And the industry needs more female focus pullers. So that's really great. And was there a particular thing for you, Leah, that because I know in the producing side you moved around, you tried different roles. Was there anything that for you kind of stuck out? You went, that was the thing I enjoy most?
ADing all the way. I think it's because it's quite a similar skill set to producing in terms of like management and staying on top of everything. But I think what was really cool as well was getting to work with the camera and doing some BTS stuff as well, because like I said, I'm not a technical person, so kind of learning a bit more about that as well, that really kind of developed my knowledge, I guess, with that.
And maybe, Lee, you can tell us a little bit about the prosthetics makeup, because there was some prosthetic makeup on this. How did that work from a production point of view, and what was your impressions there?
That was actually really cool, because I'd walk into the room and like half an hour later, like the actors are looking really different, and I'm like, what is going on here? And it was actually really cool prosthetics that we had as well. We had a professional like HOD that was there, that was absolutely fantastic with what she did. We were there kind of trying to support her in whatever way we can, whether that's with like a little hair dryer and just kind of standing around there. But it was just really cool to even just like look back and watch it all happen, because obviously it takes quite a lot of time as well. And there was a BTS video of Amrita, the prosthetics artist, actually making all the prosthetics.
It's so cool.
Really time consuming, but really cool. But yeah.
It takes time on set as well, doesn't it? You get the actors in super early, and you take a long, and actually Amrita worked incredibly fast, but yeah, on big sets, that's why the actors spend hours in that makeup chair. From a production point of view, it can slow everything down, can't it? Yeah, so interesting. And so at some point you guys sort of saw the end coming, I suppose. So you're moving through the week, you're kind of feeling like you're bonding as a team, I suppose. What do you do in the evenings? How did that work? What was the vibe? You just shattered. You probably, because these are long days as well, I suppose. Aren't they? Talk us through that.
I mean, I think they got to a point we were all so tired. We kind of came out the other side and were just a bit sort of delirious at the end of it. And so we would there was a little like gelato place down the street, and so we'd go to there, and it was so good. And that was our little like at the end, by the end of the day, we'd be like, oh, finally we can go and like relax. And we'd be, if we were like having a stressful time on set, like, oh, I can get gelato after this. And so we'd go and hang out there, or we'd all just sort of sit around together and just hang out, because everyone, we all just became so close that it was we almost like didn't want to go and have to go to bed and like be asleep, because it was just so fun hanging out with everyone.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gelato place got a lot of goodness from you guys, and that sense of a long day, because we talk a lot about young film creators trying to prepare you all as resilience, because I mean the film industry can be brutal just on the early mornings, later evenings, and that takes its toll, especially on a shoot where it's 6 consecutive days, and on a feature film that there'll be a day off, but then you might be doing 20-day shoots, longer. So how did you feel, Leah, about just the sort of management of your personal resources through that?
I never get any sleep. I think that's my biggest problem, especially when you're like on a shoot as well, because you're always like thinking about the next day, where you're thinking about what's happened, or I forgot to do this, or we need to do this tomorrow. So I'm always thinking about it. Again, I've always got a producer's hat on as well, but I never get a sleep during the shoot. It was after the shoot that I'd be like sleeping for days. But for me, I think. I'm all right without sleep, to be honest with you. I get through it. That's just me, though. But I think it's really important to kind of mentally prepare yourself for the next day, because it is a very long day. There's a lot that needs to be done, and if you're not kind of prepared yourself, and I think that has a bit of a domino effect with the rest of the crew and kind of how things flow.
Also how you interact with people, like we all get a bit antsy and a bit narky when we're tired and all of those things too. Were there any fallouts? Do you guys have some fights? Was it all pretty good?
There was any. I'm quite surprised. I thought there was going to be someone like actually go insane at somebody, but it was fine. Everyone was really nice. It was kind of sad. I kind of wanted to see some drama.
No one had a Christian Bale style freak out.
Yeah,
don't think we did.
Somebody.
No.
And so you got towards the end, you got to that final sort of day, and I suppose there must have been a sense, talk us through, of the relief maybe, or how did it feel? Did you get everything? I said the first question, did you get everything you needed for the movie?
Yeah, I mean, we got everything, but I was kind of sad by the end of it. I think we were all sort of like, it was quite mixed feelings. We're like, oh, like we did it, we finally did it, but then like, oh, we have to go home. Like we can't film anything.
It was the night before, actually. Everyone was crying. Like everyone was crying. And we were all just having a bit of a moment. Everyone was crying. The next day in the morning at the airport, everyone was crying. But it was, I guess it was like, we're all happy that it finally happened. We're also quite sad to leave each other as well. But it just shows a really good opportunity for us.
Yeah, so there was an emotional thing. And also I have to say there is that sense that, so a couple of parents actually mentioned to me when I met them, they were like, is the film industry always like this? Because they were seeing photographs of you guys, because obviously we're living on a farm. The farm are lovely. It's a beautiful family who run that farm, and they grow all the produce themselves. They cook meals for everyone, 3 meals a day. You're under Mount Etna in Sicily in the sunshine in February. And so I suppose, it's not always like that, right? But hopefully that experience kind of is so strong that it can, and I think I mentioned to some of you that in the time of darkness, which there will be, it can serve as a little beacon of light to remind you of what it can be to have that kind of experience. And so you wrapped. Did you have some sort of wrap party? Was there?
Yeah.
Paradisco is what we called it.
Paradisco.
It was so much fun. We were in the villa. I think all the puppets were still in the villa with us. And
we were friends with them by the end of it.
We were friends with the puppets. It was so much fun. Yeah, we were all just blasting music and having fun, and it was just great.
And then finally, the final day, you wrap up. You put all the kit back. Make sure we're not lost anything. And then you guys start to head back, and I suppose for you, Lee, you touched down. It must feel like coming back from another planet in some way, did it?
Oh yeah, I came back to the UK and I was like, what am I doing here? I need to be back in Sicily. We were all like that. We were all telling each other we're going to go back to Sicily, 1-year reunion or something. But no, it felt really weird being back and like going back to work as well. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? Like, I need to be back in Italy. I need to be making a film. But no, I think it really like opens up your mind, because these are sort of opportunities you will get in the future. You will get to work on different projects. You never know, all across the world. But it's really good to have an experience like this that kind of gives you a bit of foundation in a sense of what this could look like, what your career path could look like in the future.
And moving forward, now the film's gone into post-production, and so last year's film, the first year that this was attempted, the first Project Paradiso film, actually went on to play a lot of international film festivals. It's won almost 10 international awards and given a real springboard. And it was also chosen to be premiered at the Ortigia Film Festival in Syracuse in Sicily, where it played under the stars. I was there. It was amazing, and it played outdoors and to a film festival. So obviously we don't know whether your film will be able to do the same thing. But have you guys ever been to film festivals? Have you ever seen a film of yours in a festival? Is that something?
No, I've never. No, I want to, but I've never been able to do that. So I'm excited to sort of hopefully this will make it there.
Fingers crossed. And you? Leah?
Oh, this is really bad. I feel like I should be going to it, but I honestly, like, something will happen on the day. Like, I've got work or something, and I never get a chance to go. But I think definitely, like, next year, when I make the time to go to something.
Yeah. Well, if you can do, because I think these film festival experiences can be so and life-changing. To see them work in front of people as well. You know, you just see it in front of an audience, and it's kind of great. So that's where we're on the project. It's having its premiere in London coming up in a couple of months' time. The film, do we know the film's title?
I think it's.
Are we allowed to say
Did
it?
they change it?
They did change. Oh yeah, we
I
did
think you
change
say
it.
it,
Yeah,
yeah? You
it's
say-
called Strings.
Strings.
Yeah.
So look out for it, everybody. Look out for Strings as it hopefully gets out there in the world. So let's start to look back up a bit on the experience so far, and hopefully this is not the end of that experience. Hopefully once the film is out there and it starts to have a life, if it has a life, then you get to use it and it's on your portfolios and things like that, and gives you a springboard to moving forward. I suppose if you were to sort of sum up the experience so far, what do you think have been some of the positives for you as a person?
I think it really gave me a lot more sort of confidence in like myself as well. I think going into it, I would have never thought I could make a film, use all this cool equipment, and even now, like be talking on a podcast, stuff like that. I just would never have been like if someone told me that, I just couldn't believe it. And it really has sort of in all different parts of my life now as well. I find I sort of looking back on like, oh, if I could do Paradiso and I could do all of that, like I can do this as well. And I really sort of believe in myself a lot more because of it. And also just like the connections we made and the people we met, you know, that like for the future, like we can make stuff with them as well and stuff. It's sort of like nice motivation as well for anything of like, even if stuff it's boring or it's stressful, like you've got this network of people now that like in the future, like who knows what we can do together and stuff like that. It's really
Are
nice.
you still tight as a group?
Yeah, we're all really close.
Are you really? Have you got like a WhatsApp group and stuff?
Yeah.
We literally saw each other. When was the last time we saw each other? Like last month.
I think it was sooner than that. Like,
Yeah.
we all sort of meet up when we can, and yeah, we've got like a bunch of group chats and stuff. So, yeah, it's really nice.
Someone's going to make, and you're going to make a film. This you make, because if you want to make a film, you've now got a built-in network of people, right, to get involved with. And Leah, for you, reflecting on that experience, how do you think it's impacted you?
I think it's very similar in the sense that it gave us all a bit of a confidence boost, because I think, you know, the more films and things that you work on, you're still a bit like, you still doubt yourself. You're like, okay, I think I'm doing something. Am I doing it right? You know, is everything going okay? And I think being selected on something like this and being able to work with like such incredible people, it really kind of motivates you, like you said, to carry on doing this. And it kind of tells you, okay, I think you have actually got the genuine opportunity to take this on as a career. And I think as well as that as well, working with HODs who've got quite a varied experience as well, it's really nice to kind of be guided under them, because you know you work with a lot of people in the industry and they have very different things that they teach you, and it's nice to again build that network with the HODs as well, and again, you never know, we might end up working together.
Yeah, get to meet professional filmmakers who come and teach for Young Film Academy and give their time, because I think there is a danger, you know, when you have a permanent school, obviously the teachers, because they're permanent teachers, never quite get out to the industry. There's a bit of a catch-22 there. But at Young Film Academy, because, you know, we'll do, you know, a week course and summer camps at the BFI, we'll be able to get professional filmmakers to come and share their experience. So they'll come off having worked on an advert or a film or a set. And I think that has an effect, right? It feels a slightly different vibe. Is that your experience?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a very different vibe, and it's sort of inspiring as well working with these people, because you're like, oh, like I'm 17 and I'm working with all these people they've done all this cool stuff, like maybe that means I can do that one day too, and they've sort of got all this like wisdom really to like pass down on us and their advice, and they really know what they're doing, and they're really passionate about it as well, which I think just makes it so much like nicer to be a part of it. Yeah.
And so here we are at the Media Production Technology Show, recording this pod. After this, you go back to your lives briefly. Give us a sense of what you're going back to at the moment, Leah. What's life like for you at the moment?
I'm back to work. So obviously I've got a part-time job as well, so that's happening. I hate that, because I'm like, I want to do films full-time, so hopefully I can move into producing full-time soon. So I'm working on a couple indie stuff as well, and again, for me it's kind of still navigating what I want to do. I do still believe I want to do producing, but it's kind of how to scale that up get onto those bigger sets at the moment.
And you were saying you're working on a football project?
Yeah. So I'm working on a short film that is about women's football, because obviously that's quite big at the moment. With the Lioness is doing such a great job, and we're partnered with a national organisation called Her Game 2 and Nottinghamshire FA, because we filmed up in Nottingham. So that was a really cool experience, actually, working with a really mixed range of ages and experience. And I was actually one of the youngest people on there, and to be working in quite like a management role, it's quite intimidating, but I love it, and it's been such a good opportunity for me.
Actually, out of interest, it was totally by chance. The wonderful director of Bend It Like Beckham,
Yeah.
Grinda Chard, she actually gave the directors this year's Project Paradiso a masterclass before they went out there, which is a nice little tie into the female football thing. And for you, Emily?
So I'm in college. I'm sort of doing my A levels, and then I do film studies, photography, and environmental science. And I'm about to start an EPQ as well, where I'm hoping to sort of look more into documentary filmmaking as well, and sort of some other like ethics behind that as well, which I'm quite excited to start. I think I have my first I'm starting it in a couple of weeks, and yeah, that's exciting. And then I hope I'm sort of over the summer, I'm sort of planning a couple of films that I'm going to hopefully make with some people and just get stuff going. I've got to my last year at camp as well this year, which I'm definitely excited for. And I think there's a few more Paradiso people who are still going, like who aren't 18 yet. So it's going to be nice to sort of see everyone and hopefully work again.
So I think there will be a screening of the Paradiso film at the Young Film Academy summer camp for those who are just in their final year before they're too old for camp, and it's a really nice chance to share with those other students and who can be inspired, I think, by your experience, and there's a Q&A I think that you'll do, so hopefully that will be rewarding. Well, brilliant. Well, thank you both so much for coming and sharing your experience with us and the listeners and other young filmmakers out there. We always end these pods by usually taking people who've worked in the industry for a long time back to the age that you are now, and we say, what's the one piece of advice, if you could time travel back, that you would give your teenage self? Well, you are your teenage self, so it's a slightly different, so you don't have to do much time travel, but I suppose let's phrase that slightly differently. If you had to give young people who are listening to this, who would love to come on a Young Film Academy program, build up skills, be selected for something like this, follow your paths, what kind of advice might you be giving them?
I mean, I think really just like throw yourself into it, and if something seems scary, then that's even more reason to do it. I think like even camp and Paradiso as well is kind of terrifying, at least for me, and it's probably the best thing I've ever done for myself, really. And if I'd sort of listened to myself and been like, oh, like this is too much, like I can't do it, then I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't know that film was something I wanted to do. So really just go for it. And just give it your all, even if you don't know if something seems random and sort of a bit unnecessary. Just do it and go for it, and like give it everything you've got, and then you never know what's going to come out of that as well.
That's great advice. And Leah?
For me, it's something I still use now. It's resilience. I think it's so important to be resilient with everything. Obviously, it's a really hard industry to get into, and compared to like 10 years ago, now the industry is so much more accessible, especially for young people. And even for me still now, it's quite like an identity clash. I'm like, I'm not too sure, like, guys, I'm South Asian, like I still don't see a lot of people like me working like on screen, like behind the screen. And I'm like, do you know what? I want to kind of carve my own path and hopefully inspire other people, because you don't see a lot of people, like especially like our age, trying to do something like this. So definitely be resilient. There's so many different opportunities, especially in this industry, so many different departments that like we've still not heard of, and there's just so many different ways you can kind of use your skill set to come into something like this. So yeah.
Well, I think there's some brilliant points there. Two things to pick up there is, the first is, do subscribe to the Young Film Academy podcast, because that is a way you can hear about all the different departments and areas. It's available free on all major platforms, and we talk to some amazing people, both live and across the rest of the year. So do subscribe if you're listening and you're not subscribed. And I think the second thing to point out, actually, which we haven't touched on, is the female proportion of females on Project Paradiso. So out of your group of 21, do you remember how many were female out of that?
I think it was most of us, actually.
Basically most of us, yeah.
Yeah, I think there was only 2 guys in the camera crew. The rest was women, it was really nice sort of environment, because it is something that it is very male heavy, that is sort of going into it. It's a bit like, oh, like, and are they going to sort of take me seriously? Is it going to be just a bunch of guys sort of with themselves, and I'll be sort of like out on the edge? Because I think that is something that happens a lot. But everyone, even the guys as well, was so lovely, and it was really inclusive. Yeah, and it was really nice.
So I think it was 17 females, 4
Yeah.
males on the actual Sicily shoot part. So heavily skewed, and actually that is replicated in the Young Film Academy summer camp. I think is proportionally about 65% female, 35% male, which Young Film Academy I know is very keen to promote and to open up that opportunity. Did you feel that, Leah? Was it a sort of a more female set than you had experienced in the past?
It was actually very similar to the film I work on with, again, because that was about women's football. We had a really strong front line of women working on it, and then I come to this. There's a lot more women working on this as well, and it's really nice to be working with such a female-led crew, and especially obviously Amelia was female as well. So we've got some HOD who's female. So it's really, and it really inspires us as well. That we've definitely got a place for us in this industry, and when you think of filmmakers that you look up to, everyone kind of normally you'd say a male filmmaker, but now for us I think there's so many female filmmakers we can look up to and aspire to be like.
Yeah, and eventually young people are going to be aspiring to be like you. So you're also role models in your own way. So thank you both very much for joining us. It's been great to hear about your experiences. Best of luck returning to your studies and the job and your sets. So thanks everyone for joining us live from the Media Production and Technology Show at London Olympia. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.